Hello my little learners, you can call me Lovegood, and I hope you enjoy this video. Here are just a few things before we get started. Today I'm presenting you with Chapter 1 of How to Raise a Child Nemesis, titled The Bad Guy to End All Bad Guys by sabertoothhousecat on AO3. Thank you so much sabertoothhousecat for letting me podfic this. If you ever somehow find this, I apologise if my voice acting is bad. I'm trying to improve as much as I can. But anyways, thank you for tuning in to listen to me, but that's enough of my rambles and jambles, and let's get right into the fic. This is the summary. Summary. Every supervillain has a nemesis. All for One's nemesis is a boy who, although he has all the skills required for world domination, continues to use them to be a thorn in All for One's side. Solution? Adopt. It does not go as planned. Now he has a fake nephew who is still determined to take him down, outside of the house anyway. They somehow manage to be a fully functional family when All for One isn't doing crime. He's read plenty of parenting books and none of them explain how to stop your kid from destroying your criminal empire. Or Izuku overthinks everything and intentionally gets himself kidnapped by All for One. Chaos ensues. Let's get right into this fic. There's a fight, Kachan commented, looking down an alley on the way back from school. Keep going, Mitsuki said, grabbing him by the top of the head to steer him away from the conflict which his feet had already started pulling him toward. With her other hand holding Kachan's backpack, though, she didn't have enough arms to catch Izuku. Luckily, Izuku was not a headstrong instigator who jumped into fights head first. He stopped short, peered down the alley, and flipped through his hero notebook, contemplating. Definitely at least 2 villains down there, he decided, and one of them seemed to have a water-based quirk. The other one had some sort of spikes on his hand, but didn't seem to have a lot of control over them. Based on hero patrol routes, Izuku! Mitsuki barked, a warning in her voice, and Izuku wandered after her and Kachan, skimming his eyes over the passerbys for a likely target. Based on hero patrol routes, Backdraft should be around, and he had the best matchup quirk with the water guy anyway. Here was the thing about Izuku. At 9 years old, he was very aware that people should not break the law. He himself had never broken the law even once. But if he had gone online and entered some corners of the internet that he should not have been in and profited off other people breaking the law, then it didn't even count. "Excuse me," he said to a nice-looking lady buried in her phone at the bus stop. "Can I borrow your phone for a minute? I need to make a phone call." She gave him a worried look and passed him her phone, opening it to the phone app. He flipped through his notebook for Backdraft's personal number. He called it. Admittedly, he should have not had access to Backdraft's personal number, but the shady villains in the dark corners of the internet had found it, and Izuku had taken it from them, so really, it didn't even count. Seriously. "Hello?" Backdraft picked up, confused. "Hi," Izuku said. "There's a villain fight in your patrol area?" He gave the exact address and some details he'd noticed at the scene before he'd been pulled away. Mitsuki, noting Izuku's absence behind her, dragged Kachan back toward him, her expression somewhere between bewilderment and irritated. Izuku tended to have that effect on people. "Who are you?" Backdraft asked, baffled. "I gotta go," Izuku said as Mitsuki got within phone-snatching distance. "Thanks." He hung up and passed the phone back to the lady. "Izuku," Mitsuki said, in a tone of forced calm. "What are you doing?" "There was a villain fight," he said, "and this is Backdraft's patrol area, and he had a good quirk matchup, so I just called him super quickly." The lady, whose phone he'd just used, went very pale and stared at her phone, which had the call history right there for her to see. "Yes," Izuku told her silently. "You will now forever have Backdraft's phone number. Use it wisely." He was not telepathic, but he hoped she understood. Mitsuki launched into a long lecture about how Izuku couldn't just run off like that. He had not run off, he had just stopped walking. And how Inka would kill her if she lost Izuku. Izuku's mom liked Mitsuki too much to kill her. But Izuku tuned most of it out. The bus came, and the lady got on with a final curious glance back at Izuku. Mitsuki's lecture continued. The bus left. "Really, Izuku, this has to stop," Mitsuki continued. "How did you even get his phone number?" "The internet," Izuku said, tucking his notebook back into his yellow bag. It wasn't a lie. Mitsuki sighed, pinching her forehead with 2 fingers. Kachan was already inching back towards the fight, so she grabbed him by the elbow and shepherded Izuku ahead of her so she could keep an eye on him for the rest of the walk home. "Why did you use her phone?" Mitsuki asked as they walked. "You have a phone that works fine." Izuku stuck out his bottom lip. "I can't make calls on it without Wi-Fi connection, because I'm only 9 and apparently can't be trusted." Mitsuki made a sound like she wanted to disagree with that, but simply could not. A fire truck whizzed by. "What's for dinner?" Izuku asked. Thorn was not a man who found himself irritated very often. In fact, he prided himself on his ability to keep a level head. He would not have been able to make it as far as he had, to be this successful, without his patience, his calm, and his unflappable concentration. That said, there was this kid, Midori Izuku, 9 years old, at school in Musutafu, currently living with a family of Bakugos because his mother had moved across Japan to care for his ailing grandmother, quirkless, and a huge pain in one's backside. When this kid had first become an issue around 3 months ago, All For One had done a deep dive into his background and found it all incredibly easy to access. He had catalogued his name, age, address, and major life details in under 3 minutes. It was so easy to find information on him that it was almost suspicious, but even top-tier cover-ups had their tells, and this was not one of those. Midori Izuku was not a genius, not a prodigy, not a highly protected hidden force of power that the HPSC was using to weed All For One out. He was a 9-year-old, and not even a popular one. This was how it started. Midori Izuku had stumbled upon a business deal that All For One had been plotting for weeks, and he called, yes, called, Sir Nightai and ruined the entire operation. Of course, at the time, All For One hadn't known about the cause of Sir Nightai's sudden appearance. He'd assumed Sir Nightai's pesky quirk had been the reason, but 2 weeks later, a similar disruption occurred. This time, with an up-and-coming hero present Mike. And then a week after that, 13 somehow got involved in a fight. 13, who usually avoided fights like the plague, had swept in and wiped out an entire gang that All For One had been carefully sharpening for months. That was what sent up red flags in All For One's mind. That was what got him wondering, who was feeding intel to these heroes? Who was perfectly matching up quirks to make sure that whoever responded to these crises could easily navigate the situation. Several deep dives into several private hero servers, and he had descriptive details. Green hair, always asking to borrow other people's phones, very young, freckled, in Musutafu, except for when he called Sir Nightai that one time. And from there, he had narrowed it down and found this 9-year-old kid who was both extremely unremarkable and extremely annoying. At first, All For One had been content to keep an eye on him from afar, to wait for the right moment to strike as he had with Tomura. But that was quickly growing tiresome. Somehow, every single Musutafu operation was destroyed by this child. Midori Izuku either had incredible luck or was some sort of shady business deal magnate. Either way, it was making it difficult to operate in or around Musutafu, one of the most important places to be given the rise of UA. What to do was the question. All For One wasn't against killing children, but there was a sort of entertainment to Midori Izuku's antics, perhaps even a value to them, and All For One would hate to dispose of anything valuable. So he didn't want to kill the kid or dampen his admittedly stupid attempts at heroism. So then what? Adoption? He chuckled to himself at the very idea, then stopped chuckling. No, surely adoption wasn't the solution to his issues. All For One was many things, a mastermind, a murderer, a high-class criminal, but he was not a father. The idea was outrageous. But he eyed the photograph of Midori Izuku, his wide eyes and toothy smile. The similarities were not unnoticeable. They could pass as relatives. All For One could guide Midori Izuku, keep a watchful eye on him, maybe even make a villain out of him, as he was attempting to do with Tomura. He contemplated. He considered. he decided. In the end, why the hell not? More than anything, Izuku wanted to be a hero. This wasn't possible, he was told, without a quirk, but he did want it, so he would step outside the rules and save everyone. He would be just like All Might, so even though he was now grounded for disappearing, this would not put a stop to his efforts. Did a hero stop when faced with adversity? No! Would Izuku stop when faced with Mitsuki's wrath and the threat of a phone call to his mother? No! Well, it wouldn't stop him, but it did mean he needed to be a little less outwardly heroic. Heroic on the down low, like a spy, or an underground hero. Currently, he was going through a dark corner of the internet, using several layers of ad blockers and basic computer protection, because people on the internet could be scary. He also was on the phone with his mom, who was blissfully in the dark about both his transgression earlier and his current misdeeds. "How's Mitsuki been?" she asked. "Good," Izuku said, clicking a sketchy-looking link. He was trying to figure out who was the head bad guy, because he figured if he could get someone to take out the head bad guy, the bad guy of all bad guys, then the issue forever would be resolved and everyone would be safe. He knew, logically, that a new head bad guy would always be waiting to take over, but a boy could dream. "How's Katsuki?" "Good." The sketchy link led to a sketchy website filled with pictures of a huge tall guy with a mess of white hair and one of the thickest necks Izuku had ever seen. Izuku took some screenshots of the page before running an image search. "And how's school been?" "Good." The image search came up blank. "Still having trouble with those bullies?" "Good. No." "You're not paying attention." She sounded more amused than hurt, luckily. "I'm paying so much attention." Another click on a new sketchy link, instant regrets, an immediate hard reset of the computer. "But not to me." "Shoot," Izuku muttered. That had probably lost him a solid week's work, but now he could give his mom his full attention at least. "Sorry, I was just thinking. School's been fine? The self-defense classes Kachan and I started sort of help." A lie. The self-defense classes were helpful, but Izuku didn't use them at school. He had used them that one time he threw a stick at a villain and couldn't run away fast enough. Turns out it is very easy to break someone's nose, and from that moment forth, Izuku knew he could not use taekwondo skills at school. "I'm glad to hear it. Oh, your uncle called. Remember him?" Izuku only had one uncle, on his dad's side, and the last time he'd seen him he'd been like 3. As such, he did not remember him, but he made a noise of agreement nonetheless. "He said he wanted to visit. Would you be interested in seeing him? I know it might be awkward with the Bakugos around, but he's in town and wants to see you. He's a very nice man, you remember?" Izuku squinted at the script that came up on his screen during the reboot. It seemed normal, just reminding him that he'd just wiped the whole laptop. After about the 3rd time he'd had to shut down the whole thing because he was about to get a virus, he started to get pretty good at deciphering laptops. YouTube was always a saviour. "Yeah, sure," he said absently, hitting the spacebar. "Great. I'll let Mitsuki know." The virus didn't seem to have had time to take a hold of his computer before he wiped it, thank goodness, so he would not have to go scavenging for a new laptop. On the other hand, he now had to start again from scratch. At least now he had a better idea what he was looking for. He shut the laptop off again, done for the night. "How's Elba-san?" "She's doing a little better," his mom sighed. "Mostly she's just tired all the time. I don't know how much longer I'll have to stay out here. I'm so sorry about all this." Izuku didn't mind. He liked Mitsuki and Masaru, and Kachan could actually be really nice when he wasn't at school and posing in front of their classmates. His mom was way on the other side of Japan, staying with her sister because Izuku's grandma was very ill. She hadn't wanted to make Izuku switch schools, and Izuku's grandparents had more than once gravely insulted him and his mom because of the whole Izuku didn't have a quirk thing, so Izuku had stayed behind. "It's fine," Izuku said, leaning back in his chair and peering at the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Mitsuki and Masaru had done their best to make it feel like home. "Masaru's cooking is really tasty and stuff. I miss you, baby." Izuku opened his laptop again, a thought about the white-haired man striking him. "I miss you too." She laughed. "No, you don't. What are you working on?" Homework?" She laughed again at the obvious lie. "Don't stay up too late." Izuku had honestly forgotten all about his uncle coming over until a few days later when a knock came at the door. He was in the midst of doing a deep dive of research on Fat Gum's quirk and halfway through a nice long metastorm, and he barely glanced up when he heard the knock. Mitsuki yelling his name, though, got his attention. "Your uncle's here!" she called. Izuku's first thought was that he did not have an uncle. Then he remembered the whole one-sided conversation with his mom and gave himself a single smack on the forehead for responding without thinking. He had zero desire to meet his creepy old uncle. But he dug his grave now. "Just a minute," he said, shutting down the sketchy website he'd been combing through. A deep, unfamiliar voice said something from somewhere in the apartment, and Mitsuki answered with a laugh. Izuku closed his laptop and hid it under his bed. Pulling on a pair of fuzzy socks, he hopped out into the hallway and skidded into the kitchen. Very tall, white hair, the thickest neck Izuku had ever seen, taking up half the Bakugo's couch. The head bad guy. The bad guy to end all bad guys. Izuku's uncle? Squeezed into the Bakugo's living room. He met Izuku's eyes with a deep maroon stare and winked with a smile that might have fooled Izuku if he wasn't in the midst of facing off with the supervillain. Not a supervillain, the. "Hey, Izuku-kun," he said. Katran was squinting at the head bad guy suspiciously from the door to the kitchen, but Katran was always suspicious. Izuku had to smooth out the situation right away before the whole house got leveled. The head supervillain was inside the Bakugo's living room. Izuku had a good shot at him. He could break his nose too. But no, that would only lead to bad things. A broken nose wouldn't stop this top supervillain of all supervillains. He had to, as they say in All Might 4, I Island Rescue, play his cards close to his chest. So Izuku said, "Oji-san, wow, you dyed your hair. It's been so long I almost didn't recognize you." And then he tackled the supervillain to end all supervillains, his uncle, with a huge hug. Alrighty, my little learners, that is the end of this chapter. Great first chapter. I'm so excited to be starting a new podfic. I can't believe I've officially done one full long-form podfic, and this is now my second with a whopping nearly 150,000 words. Correct? I might have to check that. Yeah, 148,000 words. Jeez, that is a lot of words. I'm going to try and do entire chapters so we don't have any like part 1s and part 2s, but I might have to because some of them might be very long. There is 52 chapters. This should be out every Wednesday because my schedule, like in real life, has completely changed around to what it was last year. It has been changed for quite a while, which is why the videos were not getting out every Tuesday because it was difficult to get it out on Tuesday, but they will now be out on Wednesday. Wednesday is the MHA upload for this fic. And then the Bungo Stray Dogs one that I talked about a bit in the last chapter of Ghostly Bonds will be out, well, hopefully every Thursday or every other Thursday that one's coming out. So yeah, stay tuned for that. If this is coming out, this should be coming out on the 7th. So whether the first chapter of the Bungo Stray Dogs one will be coming out on the 8th or maybe the 15th, I'm not sure. But yeah, so my little learners, this is a little reminder you might have something you need to check. I hope you will have a fantastic time wherever and whenever you may be. Day, night, dust, dawn, low tide, high tide, whatever it is for you. You can call me Lovegood, and that was chapter 1 of How to Raise a Child Nemesis, titled The Bad Guy to End All Bad Guys by sabertoothhousecat on AO3. Again, the link to this fic will be in the pinned comment by me on this video, and tags are in the descriptions as well as warnings. Bye, little learners.